Millionaire sees cleaning. Lady sleeping on the floor and finds true love in an unexpected encounter. The 74th floor of Clark Tech's Manhattan headquarters felt different at night. During the day, it buzzed with the energy of ambitious executives and the constant hum of innovation. But at 11:45 p.m., with only the soft glow of emergency lights illuminating the empty corridors, it was almost peaceful. Almost. Neve Stanton's footsteps echoed softly as she pushed her cleaning cart past another row of glass-walled offices. Her shoulders ached from hours of scrubbing floors and emptying trash bins, but she couldn't stop yet. This was her last floor for the night, and then she could finally head home to relieve Mrs. Rodriguez, her elderly neighbor, who watched her kids during her evening shift. She paused to massage her neck, her gold hoop earrings catching the dim light. The familiar scent of her Daisy Love perfume had long since faded, replaced by the sharp smell of industrial cleaning products. Her natural curls, usually contained in a practical bun, were starting to escape their confines, creating a halo around her face. Just 3 more offices, she whispered to herself, a habit she'd developed during these lonely night shifts. The weight of exhaustion pressed down on her like a physical force. She'd been up since 5 a.m. for her morning job at the diner, had barely made it to pick up the kids from school, and then rushed here for her evening shift. It was the same grueling routine, day after day. The next office was bigger than the others, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the city lights. Neve allowed herself a moment to admire the vista. From up here, New York looked like a dream, all twinkling lights and endless possibilities. But she knew better. Down there, in her small Brooklyn apartment, reality waited with unpaid bills and growing demands. As she cleaned, her mind wandered to her father. He would have loved this place, with all its cutting-edge technology. He had been brilliant, always tinkering with computers and teaching her basic coding when she was little. Before the accident that took him away, he'd promised to help her become an engineer like him. Now at 28, that dream seemed further away than ever. The exhaustion was becoming overwhelming. Neve's eyes kept drifting to the sleek leather couch in the corner of the office. She just needed to sit down for a minute, just to catch her breath. The couch was incredibly comfortable, and the city lights created such a soothing pattern. She didn't realize she had fallen asleep until a deep voice jolted her awake. "I believe this isn't part of the cleaning protocol." Neve's eyes snapped open, her heart racing. Standing before her was Tatum Clark himself, the CEO of Clark Tech. She had seen him in company newsletters and news articles, but they didn't do him justice. In person, he was even more intimidating, tall and impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His intense blue eyes studied her with an unreadable expression, while the scent of his expensive cologne filled the space between them. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Clark." Neve jumped to her feet, straightening her uniform with trembling hands. I didn't mean to." This was it. She was going to lose her job. How would she feed her kids? Pay rent? The panic must have shown on her face because something in Tatum's expression shifted. "What's your name?" His voice was surprisingly quiet. "Neve Stanton, sir." She forced herself to meet his gaze, determined to face whatever came next with dignity. Tatum moved to his desk, his movements deliberate and controlled. He picked up a tablet and began scrolling through something. "You've been working here for 8 months. Night shift only. Perfect attendance record." He looked up at her. "2 jobs, I assume?" Neve nodded, biting her lower lip nervously. "Yes, sir. I work at a diner in the mornings." "And you have children?" The question caught her off guard. "2, a boy and a girl. They're 6 and 4. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, perhaps. Understanding. But it was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. He set the tablet down and walked to the windows, his back to her. "Oh, do you know what we do here at Clark Tech, Ms. Stanton?" The question seemed odd, given the circumstances. "You develop software and technology solutions, sir." He turned back to face her, and there was something different in his expression now. "We solve problems. We look for untapped potential." He paused, studying her face. "Tell me, if you weren't cleaning offices at midnight, what would you want to be doing?" The question struck something deep inside her. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was the surreal nature of this whole situation, but Neve found herself answering honestly. "I'd be working with computers, programming like my father did." She swallowed hard. He was an engineer. Tatum's eyebrows rose slightly. "Daz, he passed away when I was 12. The office fell silent except for the gentle hum of the building's ventilation system. Tatum walked back to his desk and pressed a button on his phone. "Owen, Come to my office. Neve's heart sank. This was it. He was calling security to escort her out. But when the door opened a few minutes later, a man in a navy suit entered. He looked between Tatum and Neve with curious eyes. "Owen," Tatum said, "I want you to set up a training program. Full-stack development, starting with the basics. Miss Stanton will be joining the tech department as a trainee." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Neve couldn't have heard that correctly. What? You'll be paid during training, of course," Tatum continued, as if this was the most normal thing in the world. "Standard entry-level salary. The schedule can be arranged around your children's school hours." Owen, to his credit, didn't show any surprise. He simply pulled out his phone and started taking notes. "When do you want to start?" "Tomorrow," Tatum said, then looked at Neve. "Unless that's a problem?" She should say no. This was crazy. People like Tatum Clark didn't just offer life-changing opportunities to sleeping cleaning staff. There had to be a catch. And yet, "Shanu," she heard herself say. "No problem at all." "Good," Tatum nodded. "Owen will handle the details. You can finish your shift tonight, but starting tomorrow, you're part of the tech department." He turned back to his work, clearly considering the matter settled. Neve stood frozen, her mind racing. This couldn't be real, but as Owen gestured for her to follow him out of the office, she realized it was. Her hands were shaking as she gathered her cleaning supplies. At the door, she paused and looked back. "Mr. Clark?" He looked up. "Why?" For a moment, something vulnerable flashed across his face. "Everyone deserves a chance. Missy Stanton, even if they have to get it at midnight in an empty office." He returned to his work, but not before she caught the ghost of a smile on his face. As she followed Owen down the hallway, Neve felt like she was floating. The city lights still twinkled beyond the windows, but now they seemed less like a cruel reminder of an unreachable dream and more like a promise of what was to come. What she didn't see was Tatum watching her leave, his expression thoughtful. He hadn't told her the whole truth, that he'd been watching her for weeks through the security feeds, noticed how she lingered near the computer screens, saw her reading programming books during her breaks. He didn't mention that he recognized in her the same hunger for success that had driven him, even if their paths had been vastly different, and he certainly didn't admit, even to himself, that something about her had touched a part of his soul he thought had died long ago. Dawn painted Brooklyn's skyline in shades of gold and pink as Neve stood before her bedroom mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. Gone was the cleaning uniform, replaced by her best attempt at business casual, black slacks, a cream blouse, and the only pair of decent flats she owned. Her fingers trembled slightly as she adjusted her signature gold hoops and smoothed down her curls, which she'd left loose today after hours of internal debate. "Girl, you look like you're about to face a firing squad, not start your dream job." Jada's voice cut through her nervous contemplation. Her older sister leaned against the doorframe, already dressed in her signature edgy style, ripped jeans, a fitted leather jacket, and combat boots. "Maybe this is a mistake," Neve murmured, tugging at her blouse. "What do I know about working in tech? I haven't written a line of code since Dad—" "Stop!" Jada crossed the room in 3 quick strides, gripping her sister's shoulders. "You're not backing out. But first, tell me again exactly what happened last night, because I still can't believe it." Neve sighed, perching on the edge of her bed. "I told you, I fell asleep in his office. He caught me, and instead of firing me, he offered me this opportunity. And you don't find that suspicious?" Jada's dark eyes narrowed. "Rich white men don't just hand out opportunities like candy, Vey, especially not to single black mothers working as cleaners. What's his angle?" "Not everyone has an angle, Jada. Everyone has an angle, especially billionaire CEOs." Before Neve could respond, rapid footsteps thundered down the hallway. Her children burst into the room, Lily in purple pajamas decorated with rockets, Marcus sporting his favorite superhero t-shirt. "Mommy, are you really not going to the diner today?" Lily launched herself into Neve's arms. "That's right, baby. Mommy's starting a new job. Remember how I used to help you with computer games? Now I'm going to learn to make them." "Cool." Marcus's eyes lit up. "Can you make me a game with dragons?" "Maybe someday." Neve hugged them both, breathing in their familiar scents. "But first we need to get you two ready for school. Aunt Jada's taking you today." After a whirlwind of breakfast, backpacks and kisses goodbye, Neve found herself standing in front of Clark Tech's imposing glass tower. The building looked different in daylight, more intimidating somehow. Taking a deep breath, she pushed through the revolving doors. The security guard did a double take when she presented her new ID badge. She recognized him from her night shifts, but said nothing as he directed her to the executive elevator bank. The same elevators she used to clean were now carrying her to a different destiny. Owen Carter was waiting for her on the 68th floor. In daylight, she could better appreciate his professional yet approachable demeanor. His navy suit was perfectly tailored, but his warm smile put her at ease. "Ready for your first day?" he asked, leading her through a maze of open-plan offices. "As I'll ever be," Neve replied, trying to ignore the curious stares from employees they passed. Owen stopped at a sleek workspace with dual monitors. "This is yours. We'll start with some basics today, getting you familiar with our systems, introducing you to the team." A young woman approached them, her stilettos clicking against the polished floor. "Owen, is this our new trainee?" The pause before trainee spoke volumes. "Yes, Alexis. This is Neve Stanton. She'll be joining the development team." Owen's tone was pleasant but firm. "Neve, Alexis Rhodes is one of our senior developers." Alexis's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How interesting. I wasn't aware we were hiring at the entry level, especially without the usual qualifications. Ms. Stanton has shown exceptional potential." A deep voice interrupted. Tatum Clark approached, commanding attention in a perfectly cut grey suit. "I trust you'll make her feel welcome." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Alexis's smile became more genuine, though her eyes remained calculating. "Of course, Mr. Clark. Welcome to the team, Neve." As Alexis walked away, Neve caught snippets of whispered conversations around her. Was a cleaner, special treatment. Clark's new project. Tatum seemed oblivious to the whispers. "How are you settling in, Miss Stanton?" "It's different," she admitted. "Tabbiting here during the day." Something flickered in his blue eyes. Amusement, perhaps. "I imagine so. Owen will get you started with training, if you need anything." He paused, then pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. "My direct line. Don't hesitate to use it." As he walked away, Neve stared at the card in her hand. His personal phone number was written in bold, precise strokes. The gesture seemed simultaneously professional and oddly intimate. The morning passed in a blur of introductions and basic training. Owen proved to be a patient teacher, guiding her through the company's systems and starting her on some fundamental programming exercises. By lunchtime, Neve's head was spinning with new information. She was heading to the break room when her phone buzzed with a text from Jada. "Lunch. We need to talk." 20 minutes later, she sat across from her sister in a small deli near the office. Jada took one look at her face and said, "Spill." Neve told her everything. The whispers, the stares, Alexis's thinly veiled disdain, and Tatum's business card. Jada listened, her expression growing increasingly concerned. "I don't like it," she declared finally. "This whole situation feels like a setup. What if he's just doing this to look good? Generous CEO gives cleaning lady a chance. It's perfect PR. You don't know him," Neve defended, then wondered why she felt the need to. "Neither do you," Jada countered. "Look, I know you want this. God knows you deserve it. But promise me you'll be careful. Men like Tatum Clark, they live in a different world. And when worlds collide, it's usually our world that takes the hit." Back at the office, Neve tried to focus on her training, but Jada's words kept echoing in her mind. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't notice Tatum watching her from his office, his expression unreadable. As the afternoon wore on, she overheard Alexis talking to another developer. It's probably just guilt. He saw a struggling single mother and had a moment of weakness. "It won't last." The words stung, but they also lit a fire in Neve's belly. She turned back to her computer, attacking her programming exercises with renewed determination. She'd show them all, Alexis, the doubters, even Jada, that she belonged here. Hours later, as the office emptied, Owen checked her progress and whistled. "You've completed twice the exercises I assigned. Impressive." "Is it?" she asked, suddenly uncertain. "Size, I mean, compared to what others would do." Owen's expression softened. "Neve, I've been teaching new developers for years. Trust me when I say you have a natural talent. Whatever brought you here, whether it was fate, luck, or Tatum's insomnia, you deserve to be here." As she packed up her things, she noticed Tatum in his office, jacket off, sleeves rolled up as he worked late into the evening. He looked up, catching her eye through the glass. For a moment, they just looked at each other, and something unspoken passed between them. On the subway ride home, Neve's mind raced. This morning, She'd been terrified of not being good enough. Now she was terrified of being too good, of drawing too much attention, of wanting too much. Because despite Jada's warnings and her own reservations, she couldn't deny the pull she felt, not just to the work, but to the man who had given her this chance. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You did well today, TC." Neve stared at the message, her heart racing. 3 simple words that somehow meant everything and nothing. She saved the number but didn't respond, unsure of the proper protocol when your billionaire CEO texts you after hours. When she finally got home, her kids were already asleep. Jada had left dinner warming in the oven and a note on the counter. "Still worried. Still love you. Still think you're crazy. Jay." Neve smiled, touching the note fondly. Maybe she was crazy. Maybe this would all fall apart tomorrow. But for now, she had a chance, a real chance, at the life she'd always dreamed of, and she was going to grab it with both hands. Consequences be damned. What she didn't know was that across town, in his penthouse office, Tatum Clark was staring at his phone, wondering if he'd overstepped by texting her. He told himself it was just professional courtesy, mentoring a promising new employee. But deep down, he knew there was something more, something that both thrilled and terrified him. He opened his laptop, pulling up the security footage from her first day. He watched her determination, her quiet dignity in the face of doubt, her brilliant smile when she solved a particularly challenging problem. She was nothing like anyone else in his world, and that's exactly what drew him to her. "What are you doing, Tatum?" he muttered to himself, closing the laptop, but he already knew the answer. He was breaking all his own rules, crossing lines he'd drawn years ago, and the strangest part, he didn't want to stop. 3 weeks into her new role at Clark Tech, Neve found herself staying late, lost in lines of code. The office had emptied hours ago, leaving her alone with the gentle hum of computers and the stunning view of Manhattan's light-dotted skyline. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she worked on debugging a particularly challenging piece of code. "You know you're not on the night shift anymore, right?" The voice startled her. Tatum stood in the doorway of the open office space, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. The scent of his Bleu de Chanel cologne drifted subtly through the air. "I just wanted to finish this," Neve explained, gesturing to her screen. "Owen said my code needs to be perfect before I can join the main project team." Tatum moved closer, leaning over her shoulder to look at her work. His proximity sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "May I?" he asked, reaching for her mouse. She nodded, acutely aware of how close he was. His fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard, making a few minor adjustments to her code. "There," he said softly. "Sometimes the simplest solution is the best one." Their eyes met in the reflection of the darkened monitor. For a moment, neither moved. "Thank you," Neve managed, breaking the spell. "I should probably head home. The kids—" "Let me give you a ride," Tatum offered. "It's late, and I'm heading out anyway." Every instinct told her to decline, to maintain professional boundaries, but the thought of another long subway ride at this hour— "Okay," she heard herself say. The elevator ride to the parking garage was silent, charged with unspoken tension. Tatum's Aston Martin purred to life under his touch, the leather seats soft and luxurious against Neve's skin. As they drove through the city, Neve found herself studying his profile in the passing streetlights. His jaw was tense, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Why are you really helping me?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Tatum was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. "Because you remind me of someone," he finally said. "Someone who never got the chance they deserved." Before she could probe further, they arrived at her Brooklyn neighborhood. The contrast between his sleek car and the modest surroundings couldn't have been starker. "Thank you for the ride," she said, reaching for the door handle. "Neve." Her name on his lips stopped her. It was the first time he'd used it. "You're doing well. Better than well. Don't let anyone tell you different." The next morning, Neve arrived at work to find Alexis Rhodes and several other developers huddled around her desk, whispering. They scattered as she approached, but Alexis lingered. "Late night with the boss." Her tone was honey-sweet poison. Neve's spine stiffened. "I was working on the debug assignment." "Of course you were," Alexis smiled. "Just remember, mixing business with pleasure never ends well. Especially not for people like us. People like us. You know what I mean." Alexis's eyes flickered meaningfully to Neve's skin. Before Neve could respond, Owen appeared. "Morning meeting in 5. Everyone. Neve, bring your debug work." The conference room filled quickly. Neve took a seat near the back trying to ignore the sideways glances. Tatum entered last, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Let's review the progress on Project Phoenix," he began. "Owen, how's the new team member performing?" Owen pulled up Neve's code on the main screen. "Exceptionally well. In fact, her solution to the debug challenge revealed a potential vulnerability in our existing system." Murmurs rippled through the room. Alexis's perfectly manicured nails drummed against the table. "Impossible," she cut in. "Faisal, that code has been vetted by our entire team." "See for yourself," Owen said, highlighting a section of Neve's work. The vulnerability was subtle, but it could have caused major issues down the line. Tatum studied the code, his expression unreadable. "Good catch, Mr. Stanton. I want you on the main development team starting today." "But sir," Alexis protested, "she hasn't completed the standard training period. Results matter more than procedures, Miss Rhodes." Tatum's tone brooked no argument. "Owen, get her set up with full project access." As the meeting dispersed, Neve's phone buzzed. A text from Jada. 911, need to talk now." She found a quiet corner and called her sister. "Have you seen the tech blogs this morning?" Jada demanded without preamble. "No. Why?" "Someone leaked photos of you getting into Tatum's car last night. They're calling you his midnight mystery woman." Neve's blood ran cold. She quickly pulled up the article on her phone. There she was, illuminated by streetlights, sliding into Tatum's Aston Martin. The headlines were exactly what Jada had warned about. Clark Tech CEO's late-night rendezvous with employee and, from cleaning lady to corner office, the truth about Tatum Clark's new protégé. "This is bad, Vay," Jada said. "Really bad." "It was just a ride home," Neve whispered, but the words sounded hollow even to her. "But you need to distance yourself now, before this gets worse." As if on cue, Owen appeared. "Neve, Mr. Clark wants to see you in his office immediately." Her heart pounding, Neve made her way to Tatum's corner office. He stood at the windows, his back to the door. "Close it," he said without turning around. She did, then waited, her hands clasped tightly together. "I've had PR draft a statement," he said finally, turning to face her. "A simple explanation. Mentor helping a promising employee. Nothing more." "Is that what this is?" The words came out softer than she intended. Tatum's eyes met hers, and something flickered in their blue depths. He took a step toward her, then stopped as if catching himself. "What do you want it to be?" The question hung in the air between them, heavy with possibility. Neve thought of her children, her dreams, everything she had to lose. "I want to succeed on my own merit," she said finally, "not because of rumors or speculation." Something like respect, and maybe disappointment, crossed his face. "Then that's what the statement will say." He moved to his desk, professional mask back in place. "Owen will help you handle any press inquiries." Neve nodded and turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "For what it's worth," he said quietly, "you've already succeeded on your merit. The rest is just noise." The rest of the day passed in a blur. Neve threw herself into her new project work, trying to ignore the whispers and stares. By evening, the PR statement had been released, and the tech blogs had moved on to newer scandals. But something had shifted. Every time she and Tatum crossed paths, the air crackled with unspoken words and untaken chances. At home that night, after tucking her children into bed, Neve sat on her small balcony, staring at the distant Manhattan skyline. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tatum. "I'm sorry about today. This isn't what I wanted for you." She started to type several responses, deleting each one. Finally, she wrote, "What did you want?" His reply came quickly. "More than I should." Neve stared at those 4 words until her vision blurred. They were dangerous words, full of promise and peril. They were words that could change everything or destroy it all. Across the city, in his penthouse office, Tatum stood at his own window, phone in hand. He thought of his father's voice. "Clarks don't mix business with pleasure. We don't blur lines, we don't show weakness." But as he looked at the Brooklyn skyline, knowing she was out there somewhere, he realized he'd already crossed every line he'd ever drawn. And for the first time in his life, he didn't want to step back. What neither of them knew was that Alexis Rhodes was still in the office, composing an email to the board of directors, subject line, "Concerns regarding recent personnel decisions." The chess pieces were moving, and the game was about to become much more complicated than either Tatum or Neve could imagine. The morning sun hadn't yet touched the Manhattan skyline when Tatum Clark received the email from the board. His jaw tightened as he read through the carefully worded concerns about recent hiring decisions and maintaining company standards. The subtle implications were clear. His interest in Neve was being noticed, questioned, and judged. But it was the attached performance analysis that made his blood boil. Someone, and he had a good idea who, had compiled a detailed report suggesting that Neve's code contributions were being altered after hours, implying that she wasn't actually responsible for her successes. His phone buzzed. "Owen, tell me you've seen this?" His friend's voice was tense. "I'm looking at it now." Tatum's free hand curled into a fist. "Get me everything. Access logs, code commits, timestamps, everything. Already on it." "But Tatum," Owen paused, "the board's called an emergency meeting for this afternoon, and they want her there." The leather of Tatum's chair creaked as he leaned back, closing his eyes. "Who else knows about this?" "Just senior management for now. But you know how this place is. By lunch, everyone will—" A commotion outside his office interrupted Owen's words. Through the glass walls, Tatum saw Neve striding toward his office, her face set in a mask of controlled fury. Behind her, his assistant scrambled to intercept. "I have to go," he told Owen, ending the call just as Neve pushed through his door. "Did you do it?" Her voice trembled with emotion. "Did you change my code?" "Miss Stanton, don't." She slapped a printout onto his desk, the same performance analysis he'd just been reading. "I trusted you. I defended you when everyone said this was just some PR stunt, and now I find out that you've been fixing my work behind my back." Tatum stood slowly. "That's not what happened." "Then what did happen?" Her gold hoops caught the morning light as she faced him, chin raised. "Because right now it looks like everything they said about us was true. Poor little charity case, getting ahead because the boss has a savior complex." "Sit down." His voice was quiet but firm. "I'd rather—" "Please." Something in his tone made her comply. Tatum rounded his desk and perched on its edge, close enough that she could smell his cologne, but not so close as to be inappropriate. "I have never altered your code," he said, meeting her eyes. "Yes, I've reviewed it. Yes, I've left comments. But every solution, every innovation, that was all you—" "Then why—" "Because someone wants to discredit you." He handed her his tablet, showing her the board email. "And they're using our connection to do it." Neve's eyes widened as she read, "The board meeting is in 4 hours." Tatum's expression hardened. "And we're going to be ready for it." He pressed a button on his phone. "Owen, my office, now." Then he turned back to Neve. "I need you to tell me everything you've worked on since you started. Every project, every commit, every line of code." Owen arrived as Neve was pulling up her project files. His usual easy smile was replaced with grim determination. "I've got the logs," he announced, setting up his laptop, "and you're not going to believe what I found." For the next 3 hours, they worked methodically, building their case. Owen's access logs showed that someone had indeed been accessing Neve's projects after hours, but it wasn't Tatum. "The timestamps match Alexis's security badge," Owen explained, pointing to the screen. "She's been trying to introduce subtle bugs into your code, but the system's version control caught them. She was trying to make me look incompetent," Neve realized. "All those late nights she claimed to be working overtime, she was sabotaging you," Tatum finished, his voice cold. "And now she's trying to use it against both of us." A knock at the door interrupted them. Tatum's assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Clark, the board is assembling." The boardroom of Clark Tech occupied the top floor, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. 12 men and women in expensive suits sat around a massive mahogany table, their expressions varying from concerned to openly hostile. Alexis was already there, looking polished and confident in a designer suit. Her smile held just the right mix of concern and professional duty as she took her seat. "Mr. Clark," Douglas Henderson, the board chairman, began, "we've called this meeting to address some serious concerns about recent personnel decisions and their impact on company integrity." "Of course," Tatum replied smoothly, taking his place at the head of the table. Neve sat between him and Owen, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. "Ms. Rhodes has brought to our attention some irregularities in the code contributions from our newest team member." Henderson gestured to Alexis, who launched into a carefully prepared presentation. "As you can see," she said, pulling up code samples, "these solutions are far beyond what someone with Mr. Stanton's limited experience could produce. Our analysis suggests significant after-hours modifications, raising questions about the true authorship of these contributions. Nevaeh felt the weight of every stare, the silent judgment in every glance. But then she felt something else. Tatum's hand, briefly touching hers under the table, a gesture of support, gone so quickly she might have imagined it. Interesting analysis, Owen spoke up, his casual tone belying the steel in his eyes. But incomplete. He connected his laptop to the room's display. These are the true access logs for the past 3 weeks. Note the timestamps and user IDs. The room fell silent as Owen methodically laid out the evidence. Every attempted sabotage, every failed effort to corrupt Nevaeh's work, all traced back to one user ID, Alexis Rhodes. "This is absurd," Alexis protested, but her perfect composure was cracking. "I was running security tests without authorization or documentation," Owen raised an eyebrow, "on a junior developer's projects outside normal working hours. If I may." Nevaeh's voice was quiet but clear. She stood, moving to the display. With swift, sure movements, she pulled up her original code, walking the board through each solution, explaining her methodology. For 15 minutes, she commanded the room, her expertise evident in every word. Even the most skeptical board members leaned forward, engaged by her clear passion and undeniable skill. "As you can see," she concluded, "every line of this code is mine. Whether you believe I deserve to be here or not, my work speaks for itself." A heavy silence fell over the room. Henderson cleared his throat. "Miss Rhodes, do you have anything to add?" Alexis's face had gone pale. I was only trying to protect the company's interests. By attempting to sabotage a colleague and lying to the board," Tatum's voice could have frozen hell. "Owen, please escort Ms. Rhodes to HR. I believe we have some termination paperwork to process." As Alexis was led out, her heels clicking angrily on the marble floor, Henderson turned to Nevaeh. "Miss Stanton, we owe you an apology. Your work is impressive." "Thank you," she replied simply, gathering her materials. "However," another board member spoke up, "there is still the matter of appearances. Mr. Clark, your personal interest in Ms. Stanton's career has not gone unnoticed." Tatum stood, buttoning his jacket. "My interest is in cultivating talent that others might overlook. Miss Stanton has proven herself more than capable, unless there are other concerns about her actual performance." The silence was answer enough. Later that evening, Nevaeh found herself alone with Tatum in his office. The city lights were coming on, casting long shadows across the floor. "Thank you," she said softly, "for believing in me. I never doubted you." He moved closer, his expression intense. "But Nevaeh, they're right about one thing. My interest in you. Say it's not entirely professional." Her heart skipped. "I know. It would be easier if it was." His voice was rough, safer. "Since when do you take the easy path?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. His laugh was low, almost pained. "You have no idea what you do to me, do you?" Before she could respond, her phone buzzed, Jada, reminding her about picking up the kids. Reality crashed back in. "I should go," she said, stepping back. Tatum nodded, professional mask sliding back into place. But as she reached the door, he called out, "Nevaeh!" She turned. "You were magnificent today." The words followed her home, echoing in her mind as she tucked her children into bed, as she fielded Jada's worried calls, as she lay awake staring at her ceiling. Across the city, Tatum stood at his penthouse window, tumbler of whiskey in hand. On his desk, a new email from the board glowed on his screen, concerns about maintaining professional boundaries and company image. He took a sip of whiskey, remembering the fire in Nevaeh's eyes as she defended her work, the brief touch of her hand under the table, the way she'd looked at him before leaving. Professional boundaries were already shattered. Company image be damned. The only question was, what would it cost them both? The morning after the board meeting, Nevaeh arrived at Clark Tech to find her team's dynamic completely transformed. Where before there had been whispers and sideways glances, now there was open curiosity and tentative respect. The story of how she had exposed Alexis's sabotage had spread through the office like wildfire, earning her a new reputation, the cleaning lady who had outsmarted a senior developer. She settled at her desk, trying to ignore the strange mix of admiration and wariness in her colleagues' eyes. Her computer screen displayed a notification, a meeting request from Owen for the entire development team. "Everything okay?" a soft voice asked. Neve looked up to find Meera Patel, one of the junior developers who had always been quietly kind to her, hovering nearby with 2 cups of coffee. "Tais just processing," Neve admitted, accepting the offered coffee gratefully. "Yesterday feels like a dream, more like a corporate thriller." Meera perched on the edge of Neve's desk. "The way you handled that code presentation, legendary, though," she lowered her voice. "Not everyone's happy about how things went down." Alexis had friends, Neve noted, seeing the tight clusters of developers who had been part of Alexis's inner circle. "Powerful ones," Meera confirmed. "And they're not just in development." Before Neve could probe further, Owen called the team together. As people gathered in the conference room, she noticed Tatum watching from his office. Their eyes met briefly, and the intensity of his gaze sent a shiver down her spine. "All right, team," Owen began once everyone was seated. "In light of recent events, we're restructuring Project Phoenix. Neve will be taking point on the security protocol redesign." A ripple of surprise ran through the room. Leading a major component of the company's flagship project was a huge responsibility, one usually reserved for senior developers. With all due respect, Richard Morton, one of Alexis's former allies, and spoke up, "Isn't that a bit premature, Ms. Stanton has been here barely a month, and in that month," Owen countered smoothly, "she identified and corrected vulnerabilities that our senior team missed. Any other concerns?" The meeting continued, but Neve barely heard it. Her mind was racing with the implications of this promotion. Was this Tatum's way of proving a point to the board, or was he setting her up to fail? Later that morning, she was deep in code when a shadow fell across her desk. Looking up, she found Tatum standing there, his expression unreadable. "Walk with me," he said quietly. They took the elevator to the rooftop garden, a peaceful space usually reserved for executive meetings. The October wind whipped at Neve's curls as they stood looking out over the city. "You're wondering why I approved the promotion," Tatum said, not looking at her. "The thought crossed my mind. It wasn't my decision." Now he turned to face her. "So Owen recommended it. The team leads agreed. I merely didn't object." Neve studied his face, trying to read the truth in his carefully neutral expression. "And the board? We'll have to accept that we promote based on merit, not tenure." His jaw tightened, though they've made their concerns about our relationship quite clear. "What relationship?" The words came out sharper than she intended. "You're my boss. You gave me an opportunity. That's all." "Is it?" He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Is that all this is, Neve?" The way he said her name made her heart race. "It has to be," she whispered. "You know it does." Before he could respond, the rooftop door opened. Owen emerged, his expression apologetic. "Sorry to interrupt, but Neve, your sister's in the lobby. Says it's urgent." Neve found Jada pacing the gleaming lobby, looking out of place in her leather jacket among the suits and ties. One look at her sister's face told Neve something was wrong. "What happened?" "Marcus's school called," Jada said without preamble. "He got into a fight. They want to meet with you, now." Neve's heart sank. Marcus had never been in trouble at school before. "Let me grab my things." "Already got them." Owen appeared behind her, holding her bag. "Take the rest of the day. Family comes first." The ride to Marcus's school was tense. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" Jada asked as they navigated Brooklyn traffic. "What do you mean?" "I mean the promotion everyone's talking about, the rooftop meeting with Loverboy, the whispers about board meetings and corporate drama. It's not like that. Then what is it like?" Jada's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're getting in deeper and deeper with a man who could destroy everything you've worked for." "He believes in me." "No, sis, he wants you. There's a difference." Before Nevi could argue, they arrived at the school. Marcus sat outside the principal's office, his Superman t-shirt torn, a bruise darkening on his cheek. "Baby, what happened?" Neve knelt before him, heart breaking at the sight of his tears. "Tommy said," he hiccuped, "he said you only got your new job because you're the boss's girlfriend, that you're not smart enough to do it for real." Neve felt like she'd been slapped. "Marcus, look at me. What other people say about me doesn't matter. What matters is—" "But it does matter." His small hands balled into fists. "They're being mean to you, and it's not fair. Dad would have—" "Your father would want you to be better than this," she said firmly, though the mention of his father sent a familiar ache through her chest. The meeting with the principal was mercifully brief. Marcus was suspended for 2 days, but the other boy would face consequences too for his bullying. That evening, after the kids were finally asleep, Neve sat on her tiny balcony with a glass of wine. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tatum. "Everything okay?" She stared at the message, thinking of Marcus's tears, of Jada's warnings, of the way Tatum looked at her on the rooftop. Finally, she replied, "No, nothing's okay." His response came quickly. "Tell me." So she did. She told him about Marcus, about the whispers reaching even elementary schools, about her fears of failing her children, her job, herself. His reply made her breath catch. "Come to the office, now." She shouldn't go. It was late, inappropriate, dangerous. But 20 minutes later, she found herself in the elevator to the top floor, her heart pounding. Tatum waited in his office, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. The city lights cast shadows across his face as he turned to her. "This has to stop," she said before he could speak. "The rumors, the speculation, it's affecting my kids." "I know." He ran a hand through his hair. "That's why I called you here. I have a proposition." She tensed. "What kind of proposition?" "A transfer. To our Seattle office. Same role, same project, but away from all this. Away from me." The words hit her like physical blows. "Why you want me to leave? I want you to succeed." His voice was rough, without shadows of doubt or whispers of favoritism, without your children suffering for choices I made. "Choices you made?" Anger flared in her chest. "What about my choices? Don't I get a say in my own life?" "Never." "No." She stepped closer, fury giving her courage. "You don't get to decide what's best for me. You don't get to push me away because it's convenient. I have fought too hard to get here, and I'm fighting to protect you." His control finally cracked. "Do you think I don't see how they look at you? How they question every achievement, every promotion? Do you think I don't hate myself for casting that shadow over your talent? Then stop protecting me and start trusting me." She was close enough now to see the struggle in his eyes. "I can handle the whispers. I can handle the doubt. What I can't handle is you making decisions about my life without—" His kiss cut off her words. It was desperate, hungry, full of weeks of suppressed longing. His hands cupped her face as if she was something precious, something he feared would break or disappear. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, reality crashed back in. What had they done? "I should go," she whispered, stepping back. "This was a mistake." His voice was hoarse. "A complication." She straightened her blouse with trembling hands. "One we can't afford right now." He nodded, professional mask sliding back into place, though his eyes still burned. "The Seattle offer stands. Think about it." "I won't take it." She moved to the door, then paused. "But thank you for caring enough to offer." As she rode the elevator down, her lips still tingling from his kiss, Neve knew everything had changed. The lines they'd been carefully maintaining had shattered, and there was no going back. What she didn't know was that in his office, Tatum was already composing an email to the board. Subject line, regarding recent personnel decisions. He was done playing by their rules. If they wanted a war, he'd give them one. But first, he had to make sure Neve was protected, even if it meant losing her. The board meeting room felt colder than usual, as Tatum Clark stood at its head, his expression carved from stone. 24 hours had passed since his kiss with Neve, and now he faced the consequences of the email he'd sent immediately after. A bold restructuring plan that would effectively neutralize the board's power over personnel decisions. "This is unprecedented," Douglas Henderson's voice cut through the tension. "You're asking us to relinquish oversight of hiring and promotions to a new independent committee. I'm asking us to eliminate bias and modernize our approach," Tatum countered, his tone measured. "Our current system clearly has flaws." At the other end of the building, Neve sat in her newly assigned project lead office, trying to focus on code but finding her mind constantly drifting to the memory of last night. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Jada, the 10th since morning. "We need to talk. Now." A knock at her door made her jump. Owen entered, his usually casual demeanor replaced with concern. "You need to see this." He placed his tablet on her desk, displaying an internal memo that had just been leaked to several tech blogs. Neve's heart stopped as she read the headline, "Clark Tech Board Members Question CEO's Leadership Amid Romance Rumors." "It gets worse," Owen said quietly, scrolling down to show comments from anonymous board members suggesting that Tatum's judgment was compromised by personal interests. "This is my fault," Neve whispered, the weight of guilt crushing her chest. "No," Owen's voice was firm. "This is about power. Tatum's trying to change a system that's worked for the old guard for decades. You're just the catalyst they needed to fight back. Before she could respond, her phone rang. Marcus's school again. Her son had gotten into another argument, defending her against more cruel rumors. "Go," Owen said, seeing her expression. "I'll handle things here." The drive to Brooklyn felt endless. When she arrived at the school, she found not only Marcus, but also Jada waiting. One look at her sister's face told her this wasn't a coincidence. "We're having a family meeting," Jada announced once they were all in her car. "Right now." They ended up at their favorite diner, the same one where Neve used to work morning shifts. Marcus sat quietly picking at his fries while Jada fixed her sister with an intense stare. "Spill. All of it." So Neve did. She told them about the kiss, about Tatum's offer of transfer, about her refusal to run away. With each word, Jada's expression grew darker. "Have you lost your mind?" she finally exploded, though keeping her voice low enough not to draw attention. "This man is not just your boss. He's a billionaire CEO with everything to lose, and you really think this ends well?" "It's not that simple," Neve protested. "Actually, it is." Jada leaned forward. "Look at your son, Vey." "Really look at him." Marcus sat hunched over his food, the bruise on his face a stark reminder of what her choices were costing him. "Baby." Neve touched his hand gently. "I'm so sorry you're going through this." "I just want you to be happy, Mom," he said quietly, "like when Dad was here." The words pierced her heart. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent message from Owen. "Emergency team meeting. Board making moves. Need you back ASAP." Back at Clark Tech, she found the development floor in chaos. Richard Morton, one of Alexis's old allies, was standing in the project room with several board members. "Ah, Ms. Stanton," Henderson smiled coldly. "Perfect timing. We were just discussing some concerns about Project Phoenix's new direction." "What concerns?" she asked, though her stomach was already knotting. "The board feels that splitting the project leadership between New York and Seattle would be more prudent," Morton explained with false sympathy. "Given recent distractions, the implication was clear. Take the transfer or lose the project." "Where's Tatum?" she whispered to Owen. "Still in meetings." They timed this deliberately. Neve looked around at her team, people who had just started to respect her, to trust her leadership. She thought of Marcus, of Jada's warnings, of everything she had to lose. Then she thought of Tatum's words on the rooftop. "We promote based on merit, not tenure." Standing straighter, she addressed the room. "Let's review the project status. I want to show you exactly what my team has accomplished and why splitting leadership now would be a critical mistake." For the next hour, she commanded the room, demonstrating their progress, highlighting innovations, and systematically destroying every argument for disrupting their workflow. Even Henderson seemed grudgingly impressed. She was just finishing when Tatum appeared in the doorway. He took in the scene with one sweep of his piercing blue eyes. "Mr. Henderson," as he said coolly, "I believe the board meeting isn't finished." "We were just exploring options for Project Phoenix," Henderson replied smoothly. "Were you?" Tatum's voice could have frozen fire. "Without consulting the CEO or project director. Given your personal involvement with the project director, we felt independent oversight was appropriate." The room went deadly silent. Navy felt every eye turn to her, then to Tatum, waiting for his response. What happened next would be talked about in Clark Tech corridors for years to come. Tatum walked slowly to the front of the room, his presence commanding absolute attention. "Let me be very clear," he said, his voice carrying to every corner. "Miss Stanton earned her position through exceptional talent and hard work. Anyone suggesting otherwise is not only insulting her capabilities, but demonstrating their own professional inadequacies." He turned to Henderson. "The board's attempt to undermine her leadership ends now. If you have concerns about my personal life affecting company decisions, address them directly. Don't wage proxy wars through talented employees who threaten your comfortable status quo." "Are you suggesting we're intimidated by a former cleaning lady?" Henderson scoffed. "No." Tatum's smile was razor-sharp. "I'm stating it outright. Now, shall we return to the board meeting? I believe we were discussing the new oversight committee." After they left, the project room erupted in whispers. Neve stood frozen, processing what had just happened. "Well," Owen said beside her, "that was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Which one do you think?" "Both." He squeezed her shoulder. "Usually the best moves are." That evening, as the office emptied, Neve found herself drawn to Tatum's office. He sat at his desk, jacket off, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. "You shouldn't have done that," she said softly. "Probably not." He looked up at her. "Do you regret it? Last night?" "Yes," she admitted. "And no. Everything's complicated now." "It was always complicated." He stood, moving to face her. "The board, the company, your family, everyone has an opinion about what we should or shouldn't do, but they don't get to decide." "Then who does?" "We do." His hand lifted to touch her face but stopped short. "But whatever we decide, you should know. I meant every word I said in there. You earned this, Never, all of it." She stepped back, creating safe distance. "I need to think. About Marcus. About the project. About everything." "I know." His smile was sad. "Take all the time you need." As she walked to the elevator, her phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made her blood run cold. Clark Tech Board calls for CEO's resignation. Sources cite personal misconduct and professional judgment concerns. The war had begun, and she was standing at its center. What no one knew was that across town, Alexis Rhodes was meeting with a reporter, armed with emails, photos, and a story that would shake Clark Tech to its foundations. The real storm hadn't even started yet. The headline blazed across every major tech news site by morning. Exclusive. Inside the Clark Tech scandal, CEO's secret relationship with former janitor threatens empire. Accompanying the story were surveillance photos. Neve entering Tatum's office late at night. Their moment on the rooftop. The ride home in his Aston Martin. Each image carefully selected to paint the exact picture Alexis Rhodes wanted the world to see. Neve saw the news as she was making breakfast for her kids. The phone slipped from her trembling fingers, clattering onto the kitchen counter. "Mom?" Lily looked up from her cereal, brown eyes wide with concern. "Are you okay?" Before she could answer, her phone erupted with notifications. Missed calls from Owen, texts from Jada, and an email from Clark Tech HR requesting her immediate presence at the office. Baby, I need you to get your brother and finish getting ready. Aunt Jada's coming to take you to school today." "Is it because of what they're saying about you and Mr. Clark?" Lily asked quietly. Neve's heart broke. Even her 6-year-old couldn't escape the gossip. "Sometimes grown-ups make things complicated, sweetheart, but I promise you, everything's going to be okay." The lie tasted bitter on her tongue. Across town, Tatum stood in his penthouse office, watching the rain lash against the windows while his PR team scrambled to contain the damage. The story had been perfectly orchestrated. Emails taken out of context, security footage carefully edited, anonymous sources painting him as a predatory boss exploiting a vulnerable employee. "The board's calling for an emergency session," Owen reported, entering without knocking. "They're voting on your removal this afternoon." Tatum's jaw tightened. "And the source?" "Alexis Rhodes, though she covered her tracks well. She's been planning this since her termination, collecting evidence, building relationships with reporters. Get legal on it. I want—" A commotion outside interrupted him. Through the glass walls, they saw Neve arguing with his assistant, her natural curls wild from the rain, gold hoops catching the morning light. "Let her in," Tatum commanded. Neve burst through the door, clutching her phone. "Have you seen—" "Yes." He dismissed his PR team with a gesture, leaving just Owen in the room. "They're making it look like I—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Like you slept your way into the position," Tatum completed grimly. "I know. It's a calculated attack, designed to discredit both of us." "Both of us?" Neve laughed bitterly. "You're Tatum Clark. You'll survive this. But me, I'm just the cleaning lady who dared to want more. Do you know what they're saying about me online? What they're saying to my children?" The pain in her voice made him step forward, but she backed away. "Don't. That's what got us here in the first place." "Never." "No." Her voice cracked. "I trusted you. I believed in this company, in this opportunity. And now my kids are being bullied. My reputation is ruined, and everything I've worked for is tainted. We can fight this," Owen interjected. "The full security footage will show the truth. Your work speaks for itself." "Does it?" She turned to him. "Because right now all anyone can see is a scandal, and my kids are paying the price." Before either man could respond, Tatum's phone buzzed. The board was convening early. They wanted both him and Neve present. The journey to the boardroom felt like walking to an execution. Whispers followed them through the corridors, employees quickly averting their eyes. Inside, the atmosphere was arctic. Henderson sat at the head of the table, his expression grave but his eyes gleaming with triumph. "Mr. Clark, "Miss Stanton," he began, "in light of recent revelations." "You mean in light of a carefully orchestrated character assassination?" Tatum cut in, his voice deadly calm. "The evidence speaks for itself," another board member commented. "The late-night meetings, the preferential treatment, the rapid promotion." "The evidence is manipulated," Owen interrupted, laying out his own files. "We have the complete security footage, unedited emails, and documentation of Ms. Rhodes's systematic attempts to undermine Ms. Stanton's position. Regardless," Henderson pressed on, "the public perception—" "Stop," Neve's quiet voice cut through the tension. "Just stop." All eyes turned to her as she stood, hands steady despite her racing heart. "You want to know the truth? Yes. There's something between Mr. Clark and me, something we never acted on until recently because we both knew the consequences. But that has nothing to do with my work, my capabilities, or my right to be here." She pulled up the project dashboard on the room's main screen. "This is what my team has accomplished in the past month. Security protocols that your senior developers missed for years. Innovations that are already saving the company millions. That's not because of Tatum Clark. That's because of me. Ms. Stanton." Henderson's voice dripped condescension. "Surely you understand?" "No, you understand." Her voice grew stronger. "I've spent my life being underestimated, being told to know my place. I watched my father, a brilliant engineer, die without ever getting the recognition he deserved because he didn't fit someone's idea of what success looks like. I won't let you do the same to me." Turning to Tatum, her expression softened slightly. "But I also won't let my personal feelings compromise everything I've worked for, or hurt my children any more than they've already been hurt." Understanding dawned in Tatum's eyes. "Neve, don't—" "I'm resigning," she announced, turning back to the board. "Effective immediately, but not because I did anything wrong, because sometimes fighting isn't worth the cost." The room erupted in chaos. Board members whispered urgently. Owen protested, but Tatum remained silent, his eyes locked on Neve's face. She walked out with her head high, ignoring the calls behind her. In the elevator, she finally let the tears fall. But when the doors opened in the lobby, she found an unexpected sight. Her entire development team stood waiting, led by Mira. "We know the truth," Mira said simply. "And we're coming with you." "What?" "Mass resignation," another developer explained. "Half the tech department. We've already lined up positions at rival firms. They're thrilled to poach Clark Tech talent." Neve stared at them, overwhelmed. These people she'd led for such a short time were willing to risk everything to stand with her. "Think about it." Mira pressed a business card into her hand. "Innovation Tech is offering director-level positions. No board drama, no scandal, just pure merit-based opportunity." Before Neve could respond, a security alert blared through the building. Upstairs, Tatum had just done something unprecedented. He'd offered his own resignation, with one condition. The board had 24 hours to accept a complete restructuring of the company's governance, eliminating their power over personnel decisions, or he would take his controlling shares and start a new company. And he already had half his best developers ready to follow. As Neve drove home through the rain, her phone buzzed with a final text from Tatum. "You were wrong about one thing. Some fights are worth any cost." She didn't respond, but as she walked into her apartment and gathered her children in her arms, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, he was right. What neither of them knew was that Alexis Rhodes wasn't done. The next phase of her plan was already in motion, and it would make the current scandal look like a gentle breeze before the hurricane. The real question was, who would be left standing when the storm finally cleared? The Innovation Tech office suite occupied the 42nd floor of a sleek building in downtown Manhattan. 2 weeks after her resignation from Clark Tech, Neve stood at its floor-to-ceiling windows, watching sunrise paint the city gold. Her new office, Director of Software Development, felt both like a victory and a defeat. "Morning, boss." Mira appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. "The team's ready for the morning briefing, and you've got a call with West Coast investors at 10. Nearly half of Neve's Clark Tech team had followed her here, their mass exodus making headlines in the tech world. Innovation Tech's CEO, Lauren Montgomery, had been all too happy to scoop up Clark Tech's talent and the publicity that came with it. "Thanks, Mira. I'll be right there." Neve adjusted her new blazer. No more bargain clothes now that her salary had tripled, and tried to ignore the notification on her phone. Another missed call from Tatum. She hadn't spoken to him since their resignations. The tech blogs were full of speculation about his next move, the board's deadline having come and gone without resolution. Some said he was planning a hostile takeover. Others claimed he was starting a new company. All Nevai knew was that the silence between them felt like an open wound. The morning meeting went smoothly. Her team was adapting well to their new environment, eager to prove themselves. But as she reviewed their progress on their first major project, she couldn't help but think of Project Phoenix, now presumably languishing at Clark Tech. Back in her office, she finally checked her voicemail. Tatum's message was brief. "We need to talk, please." Before she could dwell on it, her phone rang again. "Jada, have you seen it?" her sister demanded without preamble. "Seen what?" "Check your email. Now." With growing dread, Neve opened her inbox. The latest tech news headline made her blood run cold. Clark Tech scandal deepens. Leaked emails reveal corporate espionage plot. The article detailed allegations that Neve had stolen proprietary code from Clark Tech before her departure, supposedly orchestrated by Innovation Tech. Alexis Rhodes was quoted extensively, providing evidence of suspicious file transfers and late-night access to secure servers. "It's all lies," Nevea whispered. "Of course it is," Jada agreed, "but lies can still destroy you." As if on cue, Lauren Montgomery appeared in her doorway, expression grave. "My office, now." The next hour was a blur of accusations and denials. Innovation Tech's legal team joined by phone, discussing possibilities of lawsuits and countersuits. Through it all, Neve felt a strange sense of déjà vu. Once again, her integrity was being questioned, her achievements tainted. "We'll fight this," Lauren assured her. "But I need to know, is there anything between you and Tatum Clark that could complicate our defense?" Before Neve could respond, her phone lit up with another call. Marcus's school. Her heart sank. This time, she found both her children waiting in the principal's office. Lily's eyes were red from crying, while Marcus sat stone-faced, a fresh bruise blooming on his jaw. While the other children were sharing the news articles on their phones, the principal explained gently. Things got heated. The drive home was silent. Once inside their apartment, Marcus finally spoke. "Why did you leave Clark Tech, Mum? Really? Because sometimes," she struggled to find the right words, "sometimes doing the right thing means walking away. But you didn't do what they're saying, right?" Lily's small voice trembled. "You didn't steal anything." "No, baby, I didn't." "Then why don't you tell them that?" Marcus demanded. "Why don't you fight back?" Before she could answer, someone knocked on their door. Through the peephole, she saw Owen. "We need to talk," he said when she opened the door. "It's about Alexis." Over coffee at their kitchen table, Owen laid out what he'd discovered. She didn't just leak emails, she fabricated them. "We've found evidence of document manipulation, timestamp alterations. She's been planning this since before you left." "Why?" "She already won. I'm gone. Because this was never just about you." Owen leaned forward. "She wants to destroy Tatum. The board's using these allegations to challenge his controlling shares, claiming he was complicit in corporate espionage. If they succeed, they'll take control of the company. And Tatum is being Tatum." Owen smiled grimly. "He's refusing to fight back because he thinks engaging would only give credibility to the accusations against you." Neve closed her eyes, remembering Tatum's words. "Some fights are worth any cost." Where is he now? His penthouse, planning his next move. But, Owen hesitated. He's different. Withdrawn. The board's vote is tomorrow morning. After Owen left, Neve watched her children doing homework at the kitchen table. Marcus was struggling to focus, constantly touching his bruised jaw. Lily kept glancing at her phone, probably seeing more cruel comments from classmates. This had to end. Late that night, after leaving the kids with Jada, Neve found herself riding the elevator to Tatum's penthouse. The security guard had recognized her, waving her through with a sympathetic smile. She found him in his home office, surrounded by legal documents, and looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. "You should have called me back," he said without looking up. "You should have fought back," she countered. Now he did look up, his blue eyes intense. "They're attacking you, not me. They're attacking us both. And you're letting them. What would you have me do?" He stood, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Release emails proving our relationship was professional. Fight allegations that would only bring more attention to you and your children." "No." She stepped closer. "I want you to help me prove Alexis fabricated everything. Not just the new allegations, but the original story too." He stilled. So you want to counterattack. I want to show my children that sometimes running away isn't the answer. Her voice strengthened. That sometimes you have to stand and fight, even when it's hard, even when it costs you everything. Tatum moved toward her slowly, as if afraid she'd disappear. You could lose your new position. Your reputation could suffer more. I already lost what mattered most, she whispered. My self-respect. My children's faith in justice. You... The last word hung between them like a physical thing. You never lost me, he said roughly. I've been right here, trying to protect you the only way I knew how. I don't need protection. She met his gaze steadily. I need a partner. Someone who fights beside me, not for me. For a moment, he just looked at her. Then a slow smile spread across his face, the first real one she'd seen in weeks. Owen has proof of the manipulation, he said. And I have something else, something Alexis doesn't know about. He went to his safe, pulling out a small recording device. The night she was fired, she came to my office, threatened to destroy everything if I didn't reinstate her. I recorded it all. Why didn't you use this before? Because it also recorded me talking about you, about my feelings for you. I wasn't ready to face that then. And now? His eyes met hers. Now I'm ready to face anything. With you. As they worked through the night, piecing together their counterattack, neither noticed the storm building outside. But across town, Alexis Rhodes received an urgent call from one of her sources inside Clark Tech. The board had moved up their vote. They were meeting at midnight, not waiting for morning. The final battle for Clark Tech was about to begin, and this time, everyone had something to lose. Lightning split the Manhattan sky as Tatum's Aston Martin raced through the rain-slicked streets. In the passenger seat, Neve clutched a laptop containing their evidence while making urgent calls. Owen's already at Clark Tech, she reported, ending another call. He's stalling the board, but they're determined to hold the vote tonight. They know we're onto them. Tatum's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. Alexis must have warned them. They screeched to a halt in the Clark Tech parking garage with minutes to spare. As they rushed to the elevator, Neve's phone buzzed. A text from Jada. Kids are safe with me. Go get the truth out. The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless. Tatum reached for Neve's hand, squeezing it gently. Whatever happens up there, don't. She cut him off. We're in this together now. No more noble sacrifices. The boardroom doors were closed when they arrived, but raised voices carried through them. Owen stood outside, looking relieved to see them. They're voting to remove Tatum and file criminal charges against both of you, he reported quickly. Alexis is in there now, presenting her evidence. Tatum straightened his tie, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Then let's crash their party. They burst into the room together, bringing the storm with them. Alexis stood at the head of the table, mid-presentation. Her face went pale at the sight of them. This is a closed meeting, Henderson began, but Tatum cut him off. A closed meeting to steal my company based on fabricated evidence. His voice filled the room. I don't think so. These allegations are well documented. Alexis recovered, gesturing to her presentation. The file transfers, the late-night access. You mean these files? Neve stepped forward, opening her laptop. The ones with metadata showing they were created after I left Clark Tech. The ones with timestamps that don't match server logs. Owen connected her laptop to the room's display, bringing up their evidence. Our forensics team found clear signs of digital manipulation. The documents were backdated, the access logs altered. This is absurd, Henderson protested. Miss Rhodes is a respected criminal, Tatum interrupted, producing the recording device. Would you like to hear what respected sounds like? The room fell silent as Alexis's voice filled the air. If you fire me, I'll destroy everything. I'll create such a scandal that the board will have no choice but to remove you. I'll make sure everyone believes your precious project lead stole company secrets. Alexis lunged for the device, but Owen blocked her path. There's more, he said grimly. We found evidence of collaboration between Miss Rhodes and certain board members. Emails planning this coup weeks in advance. That's enough. Henderson stood, his face red. This meeting is adjourned. No. Tatum's voice was lethal. It's not. Because while you've been plotting to steal my company, you forgot one crucial detail. He pulled out his phone, dialing quickly. Ms. Montgomery, you're on speaker. Lauren Montgomery's voice filled the room. Is the Clark Tech board there? Good. I want to personally thank you for making this so easy. Your attempted corporate takeover, using falsified evidence and manipulated documents, has given Innovation Tech everything we need to file our own lawsuit. Not against Miss Stanton, But against you. The blood drained from Henderson's face. What are you talking about? She's talking about conspiracy and stock manipulation, a new voice announced. A distinguished older man entered the room, William Drake, the state's top securities lawyer. The SEC is very interested in how certain board members shorted Clark Tech stock just before these allegations went public. Chaos erupted. Board members began shouting, some turning on Henderson, others trying to distance themselves from the plot. Alexis made a break for the door, but was stopped by security. Through it all, Neve stood watching the empire of lies crumble. She felt Tatum's presence behind her, solid and sure. "It's over," he said softly, but it wasn't. Not quite. "What about us?" she asked, turning to face him. "Now, the real reason you didn't fight back at first. You were afraid of confirming their accusations about our relationship. I was afraid of losing you," he corrected, "of causing you and your children more pain. And now," his blue eyes met hers, full of determination. "Now I'm done being afraid." He turned to the room, raising his voice above the chaos. "Yes, I have feelings for Neve Stanton. Yes, those feelings developed while she worked here. But I never acted on them until after she proved herself invaluable to this company. Her talent, her integrity, her brilliance, those are the reasons she succeeded here, and anyone who suggests otherwise will answer to my lawyers." Neve felt tears threatening but held them back. This wasn't the time for emotion. There was one more thing they had to do. She stepped forward, addressing the board. "I came here tonight not just to clear my name, but to make you an offer." The room quieted, all eyes turning to her. Innovation Tech is prepared to merge with Clark Tech, creating the most powerful tech company on the East Coast. But, with conditions, she glanced at Tatum, who nodded encouragingly. A complete restructuring of corporate governance, a new board, selected for expertise rather than connections, and a commitment to merit-based advancement for all employees, regardless of their background. Lauren Montgomery's voice came through the speaker. "The paperwork is ready. Your shareholders will be very interested in the terms we're offering." Henderson slumped in his chair, defeated. Other board members were already reaching for their phones, likely calling their brokers. As the lawyers moved in to handle the details, Neve slipped out onto the building's rooftop terrace. The storm had passed, leaving the city gleaming under starlight. Footsteps behind her announced Tatum's arrival. "You planned this," he said, admiration in his voice. "The merger, the conditions. You and Lauren had this ready." "I learned from the best," she smiled. "Sometimes you have to risk everything to change the game." He moved closer, his hand finding hers. "What happens now?" "Now." She looked out at the city, their city. "Now we build something new. Together." "Together," he agreed, pulling her close. Below them, the city sparkled with possibility. Behind them, their allies worked to reshape two companies into one revolutionary force. And between them, finally, there were no more barriers, no more fears, no more doubts. But in the shadows of a nearby building, Alexis Rhodes made one final phone call before security reached her. "Do it," she hissed. "Release everything." The night wasn't over yet, and neither was their fight. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Neve's Brooklyn apartment as she helped Marcus with his tie. 6 months had passed since the night that changed everything, and today marked another new beginning. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" Marcus asked, fidgeting with his collar. The bruises from those difficult days were long gone, replaced by a quiet confidence that made her heart swell. "About the merger announcement, or about Tatum?" "Both." Her son's eyes met hers in the mirror. "The kids at school still talk." "Let them talk," Lily chimed in from the doorway, resplendent in her new purple dress. "Mom and Tatum fought the bad guys and won." "It's like a superhero story," Nevi smiled, remembering the chaos that followed Alexis's final act of revenge. The night of the board meeting, she had released everything: private emails, security footage, personal photos, along with a fabricated story painting Tatum as a predatory boss and Neve as a corporate spy. But this time, they were ready. Instead of running, they had faced the storm together. Tatum had gone public with their relationship, openly discussing how they had maintained professional boundaries until after Neve had proven herself. Lauren Montgomery and Owen had presented irrefutable evidence of Alexis's manipulation, and most surprisingly, Clark Tech's employees had rallied behind them, sharing stories of how Neve had earned their respect through her work and integrity. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Jada entered, looking uncharacteristically elegant in a fitted blazer and heels. "The car's here," she announced, then paused, taking in her sister's appearance. "You look like a CEO." Neve smoothed her cream silk blouse, still not quite used to her new wardrobe. "Co-CEO," she corrected. "The merger makes Tatum and me equals. Wouldn't have happened if you hadn't stood your ground." Jada's eyes softened. "Dad would be so proud." The drive to Clark Tech, soon to be Clark Innovation Technologies, was filled with nervous energy. Today they would announce not just the merger, but a complete reinvention of corporate culture, merit-based advancement, inclusive hiring practices, a tech education program for underprivileged youth. They found Tatum waiting in the lobby, looking sharp in a charcoal suit. His face lit up at the sight of them. Not just Neve, but her children too. "Ready?" he asked, offering his hand to Lily, who took it with a giggle. "Almost." Neve pulled him aside while Jada distracted the kids. "There's something you should know." She handed him a tablet displaying the latest tech blog headlines. "Redemption: How Clark Tech's Scandal Led to Revolutionary Change in Corporate America. The press is finally getting it right," he noted. "I keep reading." His eyes widened at the next article. "Breaking former Clark Tech executive Alexis Rhodes, arrested for corporate espionage and fraud. Owen's evidence paid off," Neve explained. "The FBI found connections to industrial espionage going back years. She wasn't just targeting us, she was selling company secrets to competitors." Tatum's jaw tightened. "When did you find out?" "This morning. I wanted you to know before the announcement." She touched his arm gently. "It's really over now." His response was to pull her close, not caring who saw. "No," he murmured. "It's just beginning." The announcement ceremony was held in Clark Tech's largest conference space, now packed with employees and presses and industry leaders. Neve sat between her children as Lauren Montgomery introduced the merger, outlining their vision for the future. When it was her turn to speak, Neve approached the podium with steady steps. The same room where she had once cleaned floors late at night now watched her take command. "6 months ago, I stood in this building as a janitor with a dream," she began. "Today, I stand here as proof that talent can come from anywhere, that merit should matter more than background, and that true change happens when we have the courage to challenge the status quo." She went on to announce their new initiatives, including a scholarship program named after her father. As she spoke, she saw tears in Jada's eyes, pride in her children's faces, and love in Tatum's gaze. After the ceremony, they gathered in what would soon be their shared office, the top floor split between two equal leaders. "There's one more thing we need to discuss," Tatum said, unusually nervous. He glanced at Marcus and Lily. "Something I wanted to ask all of you." Neve's heart skipped as he pulled out a small box. "I had this whole speech planned," he admitted. "Just about how you changed my life, how you made me want to be better, how you showed me what real strength looks like. But looking at you now, with your children, our children, if you'll have me, I only need to ask one thing." He opened the box, revealing a stunning sapphire ring. "Will you build this new life with me? All of you?" Before Neve could respond, Marcus stepped forward. "Tars, do you promise to always fight for what's right, like Mom does?" Tatum met the boy's eyes solemnly. "I promise." "Do you promise to read me bedtime stories?" Lily added. "Even the long ones?" "Every night." Finally, Neve found her voice. "Do you promise to remember that I don't need saving, that we're stronger together as equals? Always." His blue eyes held hers, partners in everything. "Then yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it." The children's cheers echoed through the office as Tatum slipped the ring onto her finger. Outside the windows, Manhattan's skyline stretched endlessly, full of promise. Later that night, after a family celebration dinner, Neve stood on their soon-to-be shared penthouse balcony. Tatum joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, only half joking. She turned in his embrace. "No. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "And where's that?" "Beyond the skyline," she smiled, using the phrase that had become their private joke. "Where anything is possible if you're brave enough to reach for it." Inside, they could hear Marcus teaching Lily how to code on her new laptop, while Jada argued playfully with Owen about wedding plans. The sound of their blending families, their merging lives, filled the air with joy. "How we did it," Tatum murmured against her hair. "We changed everything." "No," Nevaeh corrected, thinking of her father's dream, her children's future, and all the other dreamers who would follow. We just showed them it was possible. Above them, stars twinkled over Manhattan, witnesses to a story that began with a sleeping janitor and ended with a revolution, not just in business, but in hearts, in possibilities, in proof that love, when combined with courage and integrity, could indeed move mountains, or at least climb beyond the skyline. The end 1 year later. The annual Clark Innovation Technologies Scholarship Awards ceremony buzzed with excitement as hundreds of aspiring tech students filled the company's renovated auditorium. On stage, Neve Clark adjusted her microphone, her gold hoops catching the spotlight as she addressed the crowd. 1 year ago, we made a promise, she began, her voice strong and sure. A promise to open doors for those who had been told they didn't belong. Today, looking at our first class of scholarship recipients, I see that promise fulfilled. In the front row, Marcus and Lily beamed with pride. Now 11 and 7, they had become unofficial mascots of the company's youth coding program. Marcus wore a tie he had picked himself, while Lily sported her trademark purple dress and a tablet covered in coding stickers. Tatum stood at the side of the stage, watching his wife with undisguised admiration. Marriage hadn't dulled their spark. If anything, their partnership had grown stronger. They still argued passionately about project directions, still challenged each other's ideas, still made the board nervous with their revolutionary proposals. But they did it all together, equal partners in business and life. Owen and Jada sat in the audience, their hands intertwined. Their own whirlwind romance had surprised everyone, though in retrospect, it shouldn't have. They balanced each other perfectly, his calm practicality tempering her fierce protectiveness. As Neve announced each scholarship recipient, she couldn't help but think of her father. His photo hung prominently in the lobby now, next to the nameplate for the Michael Stanton Memorial Tech Education Fund. She hoped he would be proud of how far they'd come. The company had transformed over the past year. The merger had created not just a tech giant, but a new model for corporate culture. Their mentorship program, championed by Mira, who now served as head of developer relations, had become an industry standard. The board, restructured with diverse voices and actual tech expertise, had just approved their most ambitious initiative yet, a nationwide program to bring coding education to underserved communities. After the ceremony, the family gathered in what the employees now called the Sky Office, the top-floor space that Tatum and Neve shared. Lily was showing Owen her latest coding project, while Marcus discussed his science fair entry with Jada. Or still no regrets? Tatum asked softly, wrapping his arms around his wife. Neve leaned back against him, her hand touching the small bump that had just started to show. Their newest addition would arrive in 6 months, entering a world where their parents' story had already begun changing lives. Only one, she smiled. I should have fallen asleep in your office sooner. From the window, they could see the Manhattan skyline stretching into the distance. But now it wasn't a barrier or a dream just out of reach. It was simply home. They had climbed beyond the skyline together, and their journey was still just beginning. In Beyond the Skyline, Neve and Tatum faced prejudice, judgments and obstacles to defend not only their love, but their principles. At a crucial moment in the story, Neve had to choose between fleeing to Seattle or staying and fighting for what she believed in. If you were in her shoes, with her children being bullied and her reputation under attack, would you choose the safest path or stay to weather the storm, even without any guarantees of victory? What would you do to protect those you love while fighting for your dreams? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment your thoughts. Your participation is very important to us. See you next time.